Hello, Dr. James Bogash, expert in health and longevity, and just had to share this research article, and it has to do with SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID, and specifically the spike protein. And what they found that the spike protein can drive what's called, it's the inflammasome, NLPR3, or NLRP3 inflammasome, which is something that creates a lot of inflammation within the cell. And specifically, they looked at this in the microglia, which are the immune cells in the brain. So they found that the spike protein by itself can create inflammation in the brain, essentially, which is that's not a good thing. And certainly we have seen some relationships with COVID and brain problems that could be potentially from direct inflammation. It can be from just the overall inflammatory burden on the body that happens from a viral infection, especially if somebody has some pre-existing junk going on. But two things that I have to mention here is, first of all, this is the isolated spike protein that they found that can enter the microglia and trigger all this inflammatory cascade. You may be thinking this already, but that's exactly what we used in the mRNA vaccines. And we can certainly look back, like hindsight, we're going to look back and think that were probably some pretty big mistakes that were made. And I think not using an attenuated version of the virus, instead using the mRNA where, certainly we give the injection in the arm and normally it kind of stays in the arm, but we now know that spike, the mRNA disperses throughout the body, different tissues in different amounts, but it would not be unrealistic for some of that to make it to the nervous system and to release now the brain cells are making spike protein. In hindsight, it might have been a bad idea to use the spike protein specifically in this. And there are some people that, especially early on, they said, well, how can the spike protein itself create problems? It is very clear that the spike protein isolated all by itself can drive inflammation. It doesn't have to be attached to the virus. And this article, this study just confirms that again. The other thing I'd have to say from here is that I've already talked about how something like the supplement melatonin can control this inflammasome production. And it boils back down to melatonin, a cheap supplement that, at least in a few clinical trials, don't ask me why we didn't do more, but melatonin actually had a pretty substantial impact on hospitalizations and deaths, like a pretty staggering impact in one study. But, for $10 a month, nobody's going to make billions of dollars on melatonin. Also plays the role in sunlight exposure, which helps balance our own melatonin. A lot of things that I think in the future we're going to look back and think, wow, those were some really bad decisions. And unfortunately, we could say, well, in the moment we didn't know, but the reality is we did know. And maybe what I should say is maybe in the future we'll admit that some of these were bad decisions, because there were certainly people that were saying that they were bad decisions at the time. So as always, I'll post a link to this particular research study in the description. Make sure you like this video, share it with somebody who you think needs information, and subscribe to the channel.